All right, welcome to Bet the Edge. I'm Jay Croucher here with the whale capper, Drew Dinsick, coming off a solid Sunday. We're going to talk about the teams that we're stock up on in the NFC, and then we're going to break down tonight's Bills-Bengals game, which is going to have huge repercussions for the season and across basically every massive futures market relating to the Super Bowl, the AFC, the one seed, could decide MVP as well. And then we'll take a look at some of the wonky Week 18 lines, of which there are always many. Drew, how are you? How'd you enjoy Sunday?
I enjoyed it tremendously. Great to be back, Jay. New Year. Happy New Year to you. And it was a happy New Year for everyone who, was on the right sides with us yesterday in the NFL. Oh my goodness, that was a very solid day. Just a fun weekend in general. The pieces are falling into place, even in the NCAA national, the college football national championship. I felt like Georgia was very lucky. Michigan was very unlucky, but we got a pretty fun national championship game there. And then in the NFL yesterday, everything broke my way. I'm ready for it, Jay. Packers, Jaguars, Super Bowl in Arizona. I will see you there. It won't even matter who wins that game. It will be sweat-free if we get Packers and Jags there. But in seriousness, though, the Packers taking care of business the way they did with a complete team effort yesterday was my favorite, just viewing experience because it was a sweat-free delight. And then, seeing in the nightcap, the Steelers, who I backed pretty heavily, claw their way back into that one against the Ravens, who looked like absolute frauds, was enjoyable. So it was, I don't know, I didn't have many other major takeaways, but it was just a great day of football.
Yeah, well, two things. Firstly, one, very upset that you mentioned Georgia. This podcast is a Ryan Day free zone after what he put me through in the last drive, that Ohio State game, needing Ohio State to win the national title. But that's fine. It's always next year. And then two, you need Packers Jags. I need Eagles Chiefs, which
okay.
I would rather be in your position because obviously I've got two of the favorites, which meant that I probably had to stake a lot more to come out in a good spot. But Packers, let's start with the Packers. And I think that the place to start there is the defense. I think we've always believed that there was a path for that offense to become elite. I think it's very promising that Christian Watson was out there, that injury didn't linger, even though he didn't do much. He was still, he should have had a holding penalty on a deep ball. He looked like Christian Watson. I'm sure that with an extra week, he'll get right. The offense, I think, will be treated as very, very solid going forward. But defensively, they put Justin Jefferson in a clown suit. I didn't think that was possible, but he goes one for 15, and look, offensive player of the year. It's a bit of a mess. I think he opened the door a little bit. I'm not sure if anyone else can really walk through that door, but that was like a 100th percentile bad game from Justin Jefferson. So credit to the Packers. And how are you feeling? Are you ready for this Packers Jags?
Why can't us? That's every team with their nose even sniffing the NFC playoff picture should be thinking, why can't we go to the Super Bowl? Literally, if you watch those games yesterday and your takeaway isn't the NFC might be the weakest conference that we've had in the last 20 years, then I don't know what games you were watching. I'm not even sure. The Eagles with Hurts should be the top ranked team in the NFC, but they are now seeing attrition all over the place with meaningfully important pieces. Their wide receiver room doesn't look especially healthy and effective right now. The running back room dealing with some issues. The offensive line was not good yesterday. Weirdly, I think you can make a case with a straight face that the Packers might be the top power rated team in the NFC. It's not crazy. It's not crazy.
I'm fucking carried away now. That's the new year.
You know what? People probably woke up this morning and they're looking at some absurd prices that they bet for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to win the Super Bowl that they kind of they graded losers, weeks ago. And those are back to life. I don't think realistically anyone who is in the mix for an NFC playoff spot is realistically out of the chances of getting the Super Bowl this year. Even the Giants are playing best of any of these teams right now currently. Now they're not talented, they're not good, but that doesn't change the fact that They put on a show yesterday, and Daniel Jones is playing with confidence right now. That's obviously a ton of synergy between him and Daboll and what they're trying to do. You squint hard enough, and it sure as heck looks like Josh Allen out there. Like, it is weird. We were making tongue-in-cheek jokes about that all summer, and that looks like what's going on. It's wild. Now, they were playing, an FCS team with the Colts, but that said, like, it was still a very impressive performance by the Giants. It's going to be funny to see this play out, but the idea of now, if Aaron Rodgers can beat the Lions, which is no small task, the Lions are playing great. If they can beat the Lions and get the 7th seed, then the path of Brock Purdy, a beat up Eagles, and then whoever emerges on the other side, Tampa, Dallas. I mean, I like Aaron Rodgers' chances to exercise some demons this year. I think the most fun would be one of those two in the NFC title game. And so for just for the sake of narratives and for covering the sport and having fun with this, obviously a Green Bay run is going to be just an amazing thing to happen in January if it happens. But the idea of exercising some demons against Tom Brady in the NFC Championship game is pretty good. Exercising some demons against Mike McCarthy in the NFC Championship game would be a lot of fun. So I know I'm like 10 steps ahead here, but why can't we think about these sort of things the way that all these teams are playing? I mean, who would be your top power rated team as currently rostered with the injury situations that are going on?
Still the Eagles. I still think the Eagles are the best team in the NFC. I don't like some places in the market have made the 49ers the favorite for the NFC. I don't buy that at all. Just the Eagles are 13.5-point favorites against the Giants, and they get the 1 seed, and then they don't have to play the Green Bay Packers in the first round like the 49ers may have to. And I think with the Eagles, like, the thing to remember is that these injury situations, for the most part, are not terminal. Like, they're going to get these guys back. Hurts is going to almost certainly play this week, and then he'll have another week's rest. You would expect that he should be able to get through a game against the Giants backups. I don't expect that, Daniel Jones and co are going to be out there all game. Lane Johnson looks like he's going to try and give it a go. Gardner Johnson looks like he should be back. I don't know what the Josh Sweat situation is. It seems like, it looked like he was going to be gone forever for a second there, but it's good news. Looks like he's okay, and he should be able to come back, or at least that's what he's saying. So if the Eagles, if they get all their guys back, then I still think they are the best team. And certainly they have the benefit of having the 1 seed. I don't feel good about the 49ers after yesterday. And as someone very invested in the 49ers, that was not encouraging. I don't know what's happened to their past defense the past 2 games, but that was an absolute mess yesterday. They could not do anything against the Raiders, against the pass, or really against the run, particularly in the first half. So I don't know what's going on with that pass defense. Brock Purdy, it's a great story. Brock Purdy's not that good. He's really not that good. He throws some balls up there. And again, someone who's invested in the Niners, I did not feel confident in Brock Purdy. I think it's a credit to Kyle Shanahan that they are where they are, because the throws that Purdy makes, and look, he does make good throws, but it's just really high variance. Like, he throws 3 potential picks every game, and 2 of them could be run back for 6. And then he also makes some great throws, but most of it is Shanahan's scheme. So, look, I'm with you. The NFC is a total mess. I would still just defer to the Eagles because they have the best chance at getting the 1 seed. But all these teams, even the Bucs, are alive now. Like, the Vikings are not dead either. And the Giants, to your point, they're getting much more competent on defense, I think, with getting guys back.
Before you move off the Niners, let's just say, for the sake of arguments, that Packers win and it's Niners-Packers in San Francisco in the wild card round. What's that market going to be?
I think the Niners get a ton of respect in the market, and I don't know what's happening with defense. If we just assume that that's going to come back, I still think it's going to be Niners 3.5, even if it is Purdy. Does that sound right?
I would bet it down to that, but I think it's going to open bigger.
Yeah. I think it probably should be 3.5, because I don't have faith in Purdy or whatever's happened to the pass defense. But it probably opens 4.5.
Something like that. Yeah. Yeah, it again depends on how it depends on how the teams look in week 18, which is how stupid things are this time of season. Like, recency bias is absolutely outrageous right now. Like, people are I'm reacting to things we saw yesterday, like things 2 weeks ago didn't matter, right? So it's crazy. And speaking of kind of recency bias, Seahawks, they have a chance.
I mean, if they get in, why not? I mean, if they get in, it'll be as the 7th seed going up against Brock Purdy, who, I mean, the game was close-ish when they played the Niners a few weeks ago. I do think the Seahawks, I mean, they are a stock-up team in the sense that they kept their season alive. I think that the pass game, which has fallen off, but when they have Lockett, when they have Metcalf and Walker, then it is, in theory, a pretty solid offense. I think the thing with the Seahawks, and I'm not sure how real this is, but the defense has looked a lot more competent the past 3 weeks. Like, they kept Mahomes and Kansas City in relative check, and they kept that, at least with Seattle's defense, they kept that game manageable. Just the offense didn't do anything. And then, Mike White kind of revealed himself as Mike White yesterday, but that was still an impressive defensive performance. And they did it without Ryan Neal, who might be the best player on that defense, a Pro Bowl level safety. So if he comes back with the level that Tariq Woolen is playing at, like the defense, I think coming out of the Raiders game and that little stretch where it was getting lit up by the Raiders and the John Wolford and then the Panthers, it looked like the Seahawks might have a bottom 3 defense in the league. And I don't think that it's quite that bad. I think it's more like a bottom 10 defense. And they've got, and then if Geno, who is very high variance, and that's what you want if you're backing underdogs, like you don't want to be really going to war with Daniel Jones, because I don't think Daniel Jones has that much of a ceiling. I think he's just solid, whereas Geno is high variance and had a stretch for 5 weeks to start the season where he was playing like a top 4 quarterback in the league. So I think that they are live to win a game in the playoffs if they do get in, but they're going to need some help. They're going to need Jared Goff to show up for them.
Yeah.
All right.
Big time. I got to ask one more thing. So I agree with you on the defensive part of it, but a lot of that feels like the pack has come back to them as opposed to their defense is just playing better. Right. Is there a good, like, who is good on defense right now, like across the entire NFL? Like, if you had to stake your playoff run on one pass defense in the NFL right now, who is it even?
I mean, the only thing that I can trust on defense in the league is that the Titans are going to stop the run. That's the only thing that I can count on. And their secondary is obviously a mess. I mean, I just think it's a cluster of teams like, I mean, 2 of the teams that we're going to see tonight and talk about. I don't know how the Bengals defense is this good, but it seems like it is. The Bills are getting healthier. And I still do think that San Francisco's defense in the playoffs will show up and they will be the number 1 defense. We'll see with the Eagles when they get their guys back. It's concerning with the Cowboys that this is just going on and on and on, and they haven't reached that level. But I still think the 49ers have the best defense, and I think it's probably just, we just didn't show up against Jarrett Stidham. So I would still say that they are the best. But, yeah, it's not been encouraging the past couple of weeks. I mean, do you still have the Niners 1?
Yes, but a super soft one, like amazingly soft. The last 2 weeks were not good. They were not good. And you don't want to be rounding into form where all of a sudden, there are lots of ways to attack you. I mean, maybe the Patriots. They're
we'll see what happens with their corners, but
yeah, I guess I was impressed that they played as well as they did yesterday, even considering. I mean, looking at the last, like, say 9-8 weeks as sort of the recency sample, everything is skewed pretty violently by strength of opponent, just because there hasn't been very many good quarterbacks this year. But I would have to rate, the Patriots and the Niners is very soft 1 and 2 right now. And it's tough. It's tough to make a case for anyone. So it literally this year is going to come down to who gets hot. Yeah, that was last year too. So why this may just be the way it goes now.
One defense to watch before we move on is the Chargers, who get Joey Bosa back, and that defense has been now excellent for a month. I'm not sure how real that is, because a lot of their numbers are inflated by Nicholas Foles, but I do think that defense is playing a lot better. And look, if they were playing in the NFC, they might have the best team the way this is going, but they don't, and they're not going to win the AFC because they're going to have to play 3 brutal games on the road. I was just going to
say, you know whose defense looks good? The Giants, because they just played Nick Foles and Sam Ellinger. So it's absolutely hilarious how where we sit right now in the NFL.
Yep. All right. Before we get into Bills-Bengals, a reminder to download the Roto World app to receive breaking player news All season long, stay ahead of the competition by favoriting players on your roster. Get the latest injury updates, player news, and much more delivered right to your phone. It's available in the App Store today. All right, Bills are now 2-point favorites at PointsBet in Cincinnati against the Bengals. The total is a huge 49.5. Do you have a lean on this game?
I do. I played some Bills. This is by far and away my least confident side that I took this week. And some may even say you're just doing this to have skin in what is the most important game of the week. And I can't really make an argument against that. Like, to a degree, this is a very realistic and fair market. My fair is close enough to Bills by 3 that I took Bills 1. And I think that in general, the momentum as we get into close is going to be in the direction of the Bills. So there's still a little bit of meat on the bone here. Bengals have had a nice little run. Congratulations. We thought coming into the home stretch of the season that they were going to face this absolute gauntlet of opposing teams, quarterbacks, blah, 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 and that it was all going to come apart and the Bengals were really going to be tested. All they do is win football games. Now it hasn't been pretty. There's been a lot of very up and down stuff, weird win last week against the Patriots. Teams are helping them, like the Buccaneers the prior week. And, to a degree, I think there's a little bit of inflation in terms of the impression of this Bengals team. A lot of people putting Joe Burrow in the conversation for MVP when I'm not seeing him really close to the top tier guys. And then on the flip side, the Buffalo Bills have a style of attack that I think, matches up well against what the Bengals plan A is defensively. Bengals like to trot out a relatively light set. They want to try to generate pressure with 3 or 4 guys. That's not going to work against the Buffalo Bills. If you're giving Josh Allen time to either dissect you down the field and or let him kind of break the pocket and get things going with his legs, then the Buffalo Bills are going to sustain drives and they're going to have offensive success in this one. Now, I don't know that this turns into a boat race necessarily. I like the Bills matchups to a degree against the Bengals defense, when the Bills defense is on the field. And, so I think that there are enough boxes that I check in favor of the Bills on a matchup standpoint that I can see them getting this win, or at least playing from ahead, at which point in time, they never take their foot off the gas. This is a team that I think understands the gravity of a game like this. They have shown in past years that they try to round into form this time of season. And this obviously has like a playoff dress rehearsal feel to it. And Bills going for the 1 seed. This game means a lot to them. Obviously, the implications that you brought up at the top of the show about how this impacts the futures market is monumental. Bills lose this game, they give up like 30% championship equity. It's massive. And I would say that in general, you come out with a strong plan of attack, and Bills just in general go relatively hard from whistle to whistle here. Get the win. So I laid the points.
Yep. I think weirdly, these are kind of the exact same team to me in terms of their strengths and weaknesses, where I don't think there's a good cornerback between the two rosters at the moment, or at least an elite one, with Tre'Davious White still a bit rusty off of the injury, but they have elite linebacking cores, safeties, defensive lines. Offensive line is kind of shaky on both sides, and then they both have superstar quarterbacks and elite wide receivers. So it's kind of the same. It's a little mirrored. I would probably skew, I just think the game is a coin flip. So I would probably skew Bengals because I trust Joe Burrow a little bit more than Josh Allen right now. Like, why is Josh Allen just throwing these weird picks and fumbling once or twice every week? I think that Burrow is a little bit more stable in terms of avoiding turnovers. He's gotten better at avoiding sacks as well. And I think that this offense is humming at the moment. But yeah, I think this is a coin flip. And to your point about like the championship equity, I can't remember a regular season game that has more repercussions on the Super Bowl than this one. And the beneficiary of a Bills loss is not necessarily going to be the Bengals, it's Kansas City.
Yeah.
If the Bills win this game, then Kansas City just needs to beat the great Jarrett Stidham, which would be doable, as immortal as Stidham looked yesterday. And all of a sudden, the Chiefs, the difference for the Chiefs versus, having to play the Bengals in round 2 and then having to go to Buffalo for the AFC title, as opposed to only having to play one of these teams full stop and getting that game at Arrowhead. I mean, that's massive. And I'm not sure exactly what the difference is in terms of Super Bowl odds, but I think it could be the difference between the Chiefs being fair price around plus 250 or around plus 550. Like, it is enormous.
Yeah, I said 30% championship swing. I take 15% away from the Bills and give 15% to the Chiefs based on the result of this game. A 30% net swing between Bills and Chiefs, depending on Bills winning or losing this game, I think is fair. And that's massive. It's incredible. Now, people are asking, do the Bills lose this game on purpose so that they can avoid the Jaguars in round 2 of the playoffs? And to those people, I would say probably not, but you never know. It's weird. You want a path that gets you the highest likelihood. And, Bills presumably, if they lose this game, how do they treat the Week 18 game against the Patriots, considering that they would get the Patriots again in the playoffs? Like, one of my least favorite things about the NFL playoffs and the final game of the season is shaping up in the AFC, which is if the Bengals win this game, you could potentially get Bengals-Ravens Week 18, Bengals-Ravens wild card. You could get Bills-Patriots Week 18, Bills-Patriots wild card, which would be kind of deflating, but hoping that doesn't happen. Either way, though, the mighty Buffalo Bills, I think, are still the best team in the NFL, and maybe they have the best defense, actually.
Yeah, I think you might be right. All right, before we talk about some of the weird Week 18 games, just a reminder, if you don't have the NBC Sports Predictor app, go download it now. The contests are free and easy to play, and you have a shot to win thousands this weekend by predicting what will happen during bowl season and in the Premier League. There's also $100,000 up for grabs by guessing the outcome in our Sunday Night 7 contest. We will know what that game is shortly. All right. It's not going to be any of the 4 games that we're going to touch on here, though. So let's start off with some of these wonky Week 18 games. Texans, Colts -3. Saints -4.5. Home to the Panthers. Falcons -7. Home to the Bucks. And then the Cowboys, who do actually have something at stake. They're 6-point favorites at the Commanders. So I guess you don't have to dive into all these games specifically, but what's generally your approach macro to these games where there's basically nothing at stake in Week 18?
Yeah, dog or pass. I think you look specifically at the underdog and what exactly their motivation is going to be coming into this one. And I realistically, the only one that stands out as how in the world are we here is the Colts laying 3. The Colts are the worst team in the NFL right now. So the fact that they're laying 3, literally, there's a built-in assumption that the Texans will lose at any cost, which maybe. I mean, there's still a lot of players playing for jobs there. I don't think they laid down against the Jaguars last week. That was just a motivational low spot after they finally got their second win. So the Texans coming out and giving you an honest effort and getting a win against a Colts team that is really, really, really playing poorly, I think is entirely on the table. Maybe I'll tickle some Texans first half or something like that. Like they'll really pull the dogs in the second half of a game like this to make sure they lose. But that one's the one that stands out to me. I would also note the Cowboys laying 6 at the Commanders is interesting. I don't exactly know what goes on in the final week of the season for Cowboys and, just in general, the way that Jerry Jones kind of deals with his head coaches, but they tend to not use the final week of the season as a pseudo bye. They treat it very seriously. There were games where they were playing for absolutely nothing, and they came out and they hung like 50 points on the Giants one year. And it was, there's a lot of examples of that, of the Cowboys giving you high level of effort final week of the season for no freaking reason. So I would look at some historical trends of coaches and teams in that context as well. Last week, Cowboys playing for nothing, couldn't improve their situation at all. They hung 51 points on the Eagles in a game where they were, like a small dog. So it's unusual the way some of these teams treat these games, and I would just kind of tread carefully.
Yeah, I think the key thing to remember is that if teams have nothing to play for and they've been eliminated, that doesn't mean they sit their guys. And usually it goes the other way, where they just kind of play everyone who's healthy. And these guys are still playing for, their next contract. Coaches are playing to have their their record just look better across the board. Like generally teams do play guys. It's just when you've got situations like the Bucks where, they're locked into their spot, or the Giants who are locked into their spot, where that is where the resting becomes key. And I think it's key to just be tracking the beat reporting and just figuring out, like, all right, is someone going to play a half? Are they just going to play a quarter? And that's where the rorts are generally, is with like same game parlays and stuff, betting halves into player props and that type of thing. Like usually it's the first half betting in week 18 is where the angles arise. I do agree that Colts -3 against the Texans. I mean, the Colts are almost certainly going to have the worst quarterback in that matchup, given that it's probably going to be Sam Ehlinger, who might honestly be an upgrade on Nick Foles based on what Foles showed in his inglorious 5 or so quarters as a starter. But yeah, that one is very wonky. I think just overall the week 18 lines, the one that stood out to me last night as just being off was the Jets getting 3 points from the Dolphins. That didn't make any sense to me at all when you think that there's a good chance that's going to be Skylar Thompson. That's already down to +2.5.
Yeah.
And I know that Mike White looked bad against the Seahawks, and I don't think he's very good, but he still was competent in 3 games prior to the Seahawks game. And we'll see what they do. But that Jets defense is legitimately good going up against the Miami team that, I mean, Miami were missing so many guys yesterday between Teron Armstead, Bradley Chubb, Xavier Howard, obviously Tua Tagovailoa. So we'll see what their injury situation is. But I think +3 was wrong. +2.5, I think, is probably inching back towards right. But if it is Skylar Thompson, then that line will continue to shrink. So that is definitely one to keep an eye on, as we will throughout the week. All right.
Yes.
We are done. Anything else, Drew, before we sign off?
No, I like we should, as we get closer to the actual kickoff, we should come up with the other sort of rorts to look for in week 18, because there are some very, very real second half angles that are some of the most profitable betting angles you'll see all season long, and they only come once a year. So we'll cover more of that as we get there.
Absolutely. All right. Don't forget to check out NBCSportsEdge.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks to those watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. And if you're listening to us in podcast form, don't forget to subscribe and rate us. From Jay Croucher and Drew Dinsick, we'll be back tomorrow.